Hello ladies and gents, and welcome back to AndyManCam's garage, although this is a field trip edition because as you can see we're out on the street. Now I recently fitted this Healtech GIpro X-Type G2 gear indicator to my FZ1N. Now if you haven't seen the install video, be sure to check it out later on, links up there and in the description down below. And while we're out here, I'm going to show you some of the exciting new features of this second generation gear indicator from Healtech. So get yourself comfortable, let's get started. Now this GIpro X-Type G2 is the second generation, hence G2, and that means that this gear indicator has a lot of new and exciting features that the old one didn't have, and I'm going to show you what they are. And the first one, most excitingly, is the fact that this gear indicator actually has a touch panel on the top to change all of the settings. So if I turn on the bike, the gear indicator counts up from 1 to 6 and then we get a dash telling us that it's ready. Now I've already learnt the gears on my indicator. As you'll see in a minute, if it hadn't been programmed it would show us something different. Now to get into the settings menu from this state, we just need to touch the top of the gear indicator with a freezing cold finger and hold it there until it shows us a C. So now we're into the settings menu. Now we can change the options by touching the top and it cycles through all of the available settings on the unit. Now what these settings are, C is code and this will tell us the firmware version of the unit. L is for learning, this would be for if you wanted to relearn the gearing. If you changed the sprockets or something and you wanted to reprogram the unit, you'd go into L for learning. F is for filtering. This has nothing to do with pushing in front of the traffic. This is to do with the sampling period that the unit uses to calculate your gearing. So if it's not working quick enough or if it's working too quickly, you can change this to change the way that the unit behaves. B is brightness. This indicator has automatic brightness adjustment and this setting adjusts the sensitivity of that function. H stands for high speed warning. This setting allows you to set a speed over which the gear indicator will flash at full brightness to tell you that you've exceeded your speed limit. E stands for engine speed warning. This allows you to essentially set a shift light. So you can choose any point in the rev range at which the gear indicator will flash quickly at full brightness to tell you that you need to change gear. U stands for upside down. This allows you to flip the display over for in case you wanted to mount it the other way up. And finally D returns everything to default. Now I'm going to start with a clean slate, so I'm going to set everything back to default, and to choose any of these settings while they're flashing, all you need to do is do a long press on it until it flashes. And this unit is now reset to default, so it wants to learn my gears. Now, as I already said, I already programmed my gears in the garage, but in case you're not comfortable with the idea of running your bike on a paddock stand with the rear wheels spinning in the air at 60 miles an hour, I'm going to show you how you can program the gear indicator out on the road. So, we'll start from the beginning, because the beginning is a good place to start. Turn on the bike. Indicator counts down from 6 to 1 and then flashes L, telling us it's ready to learn. Now at this point your bike needs to be already warmed up, because the first step is learning the idle speed, and the idle speed will only be steady once the bike is already warm. My bike's cooled down way too much while I've been sat here faffing, so I'll just quickly warm it up. Bing! It's amazing how quick these bikes warm up, isn't it? So then the L is flashing slowly. We start the bike. The L starts to flash quickly as it learns the idle speed. Once it's got that, changes to 1. That tells us that it's ready to learn the first gear, so we can get moving. And for this job, I have picked a nice, clear, open, straight stretch of road. So, switch into first gear, get moving. Now what we want to do is fix the revs between 3 and 4,000. See that? The N flashes, and it moves on to the 2, which tells us it's ready to learn the second gear. So we switch into second gear, same drill, keep the revs steady between 3 and 4,000 RPM. Shows us a little N, moves on to 3, so we're ready for the third gear. Same again, between 3 and 4, N tells us it's registered the gear, switch up into 4th, steady revs between 3 and 4, shows us an N, moves up to 5, so we're ready for the 5th gear. I think you get the drill by now. Shows us an N, last gear, and then we get a big capital U to tell us that the learning process is finished and it's now learned all of our gears. So if I switch down, there's 5th, there's 4th, there's 3rd, there's 2nd, and there's 1st. And the same in the other direction. I love the fact that you can easily do 90 kilometers an hour on this bike in first gear. Okay, so with the gearing learned, I'm going to pull over and we'll look at the next setting. So to get into the settings again, I need to switch off the bike, switch off my heated vest too so I don't kill the battery. Then we switch the bike back on. counts up from 1 to 6. It's essentially telling us all the gears that we have available. As far as I'm aware, if you had a 5-speed bike and programmed 5 gears into it, it would only count up from 1 to 5. So while we've got this dash here, we hold down on the top. The big C starts to flash, press it again, we go to the next setting, which is L for learning. We've already done that, so we move on to the next one. Seem to be working okay, so frequency we'll leave as it is for now. Come on to brightness. Probably should have done this in the first place, so I'm going to hold down on that. And then we get the settings for the brightness flashing. So we've got a number 4, which is the default setting. We can change this from 0, which is the dimmest, to 9, which is the brightest. So you touch it till you get the number you want, hold down until it flashes with the capital U, and that setting is now done. And it counts back up again from 1 to 6. So if I hold down again to get back into the settings, go through to H. This is the high speed warning. Now what you need to do to get this setting, do a long press on the top there, and then it starts this spinning animation. What that means is it's ready to learn my high speed warning setting. Then we're going to need a stretch of open road for this, because you need to get up into top gear. And then the spinning animation starts to spin, telling us it's learning the speed. Now what we want to do is get to my target top speed. I'm going to set it as 100 kilometers an hour because that's the national speed limit out here in Germany. Once I've reached that speed, keep it steady. We've actually gone to 101, but that's all right. Then we can gradually slow down, come to a stop, and the capital U flashes, telling us that the unit has updated and it's now learnt my top speed. So now, if I go over that speed, the gear indicator starts to flash slowly. Still shows me what gear I'm in, but until I come below the speed, there we go. So if I go over again, 90, 95, there's 100. So now we're over, the gear indicator is flashing slowly, still telling us what gear we're in. So if I change gear, so that's the high speed warning feature. Say for example you wanted to turn that off, turn the bike off, turn it on again, long press to come into the settings, press until you get to the high speed warning, long press to get the spinning animation, and then long press again until you get a flashing capital U, tells you the unit's updated and now the maximum speed warning is deleted. It's pretty handy to be able to do that without having to reset all of the settings. Say for example you've been riding around on the country roads and you're going to go on the motorway and you don't want to have this thing flashing in your face all of the time while you're doing 120. So that's that. What's the next setting? So having not actually started the engine, I can do a long press on the top and go back into the settings, which is pretty handy because it means you can change a bunch of settings all at once without having to keep turning the bike on and off while you're doing it. I'm going to press till we get to E. This is the engine speed warning. Do a long press there and we get the spinning animation again. So now what we need to do when the road is clear is start the bike. Quite hard to set an engine speed warning without the engine spinning. We need to get the bike rolling into second gear, and then in second gear find the peak revs that you're going for. Let's say I'm going to set it at 7,000 roughly, so hold 7,000 RPM for about 3 seconds while the animation is spinning quickly, and then safely come to a controlled stop. You get a flashing capital U and the unit tells you that it's updated. So now, when I get to 7,000 RPM, gear indicator flashes quickly, telling me that I need to change gear based upon the settings that I've programmed into it. So that's the engine speed warning. Same as before, switch off the bike, turn it back on, come into the settings with the long press, go down to engine speed warning, another long press, with spinning animation, hold down again. Big flashing U tells us that that's now been cleared as well. So what's left? Come into the settings again. And then U to flip the display. Let's just see how that looks. So now, just for shits and giggles, the display is upside down. Currently I'm on gear H. Look at that, a 9-speed phaser. Of course, having the gears upside down is no good to man nor beast, so let's put that back the way it was. Go to the U, long press, and that's flipped over. And then the last setting is the D, which if I were to do a long press on that, it would reset everything back to default and the unit would be as new again. So that's that. That's all the settings, all the features, all the functions of this Healtech GIpro X-Type G2 gear indicator. And I think you'll agree that's a hell of an upgrade over the old gear indicator. A lot of extra functions built into it, a lot of extra intelligence, and this touchpad thing on the top I think is absolutely brilliant. The only one thing that is a bit of a shame is that in cold weather like this you can't actually use it with a gloved finger. It just won't work. It has to be a naked finger. Ooh, matron. Naked finger! So there we go. Thanks very much for watching. I have been AndyManCam, and this has been the Healtech GIpro X-Type G2 gear indicator. Right, let's go and indicate some gears. See you next time. Ta-ra!